Good afternoon. My name is Akin Oshuntoki. I am the chairman of the Programs Committee at the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. To welcome us very warmly to this event. Today, we shall be looking at the theme, Mines and Steel Development, Unlocking Nigeria's Economic Potentials. Before I do the usual housekeeping and protocols, I'll ask that we have the national anthem of Nigeria and the national anthem of Britain. Once again, I welcome you most warmly on behalf of Mr. Kayode Falowo, President and Chairman of Council, and indeed the entire Council of NBCC. I welcome you to this event. Very quickly, I'd like to share a few of our details with you. I'm going to share the vision, the mission, and the cardinal goals of NBCC before I introduce our guest speaker. The vision of NBCC is to be the foremost channel of trade and commerce between Nigeria and Britain. The mission is to continually encourage and promote mutually beneficial trade relations between Nigeria and Britain. Our cardinal goals: we encourage trade facilitation from both ends. We positively influence policy, communicate government policy, and encourage networking amongst our members. And with programs like this, we enrich membership experience. Very quickly, let me share with you some of the events that we have had in the last few months. We had managing stress, avoiding executive burnout. We've also had a session on financing agribusiness post-COVID-19. We had 2 sessions on real estate. The first was resolving real estate and construction disputes post-COVID-19. The second, real estate outlook in Nigeria post-COVID-19. Also, winning at business during and after COVID-19. We encourage you to please take a view of those programs on our YouTube channel. Very quickly, I'd like to introduce, before I introduce our keynote speaker, let me ask that those who have questions or those who might have questions in the course of this event should make use of the Q&A icon. And also, if you want to make a comment, kindly use the chat icon. Very quickly, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. We are indeed highly honored to have with us online from Abuja, the Honorable Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Architect Olamilekan Adegbite. Honorable Minister, you are most welcome. Architect Olamilekan Adegbite has over 35 years experience in architecture and construction. He holds a Bachelor of Environmental Studies and a Master's of Environmental Design from the School of Architecture, University of Lagos. His career started at Project Scope Nigeria, a design and build company. He joined the Modular Group of Architects, a consulting firm of architects and planners, where he was responsible for many projects, the most notable being the 30-story headquarter building of Union Bank PLC. Architect Adegbite also founded Lekan Adegbite Associates and Adcon Limited. He was Commissioner of Works and Infrastructure in Ogun State for 8 years, from 2011 to 2019, where he played a key role in the construction of roads, flyover bridges, and other infrastructural developments in Ogun State. Without a doubt, Architect Adegbite contributed significantly in making Ogun State to be the investment hub in Nigeria, owing to the massive infrastructural projects embarked upon across the nooks and crannies of the state. Please help me to welcome our Honorable Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Architect Olamilekan Adegbite. You are most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
Moderating this afternoon is a very experienced consultant, Cyril Azobu. Cyril is a partner in advisory and mining section of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Cyril is a partner of PwC with experience spanning 25 years of business advisory, consulting, accounting, auditing, and taxation services for companies both within the public and private sectors of Nigeria. He has led the audits of and provision of consulting work to major private companies, states, federal government, and government agencies in Nigeria. He is a specialist in petroleum power and mining, and is currently the PwC Nigeria mining leader. Cyril is also a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, the Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, the Institute of Management Consultants of Nigeria, and the Nigeria Leadership Initiative. He participated in the development of the roadmap of the adoption of International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, and the development of the current roadmap for the development of the mining sector in Nigeria. Please help me welcome Cyril Azobu. Cyril, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Very quickly, before I invite our president and chairman of council, let me quickly mention again that those who have question and answers, those who have questions should please use the Q&A icon. My job is almost done. It is now time to welcome Mr. Kayode Falowo, President and Chairman of Council of MBCC, to deliver his welcome address. Please help me welcome Mr. Falowo. Help me welcome Mr. Falowo.
Thank you very much, Aki Oshutoki, Chairman of our Programs Committee. On behalf of the Council of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank you and your committee members, and indeed the Secretariat, for arranging this very, very important webinar, which is very much in the tradition of your committee, and we congratulate you again for another good showing. I would like to also, on behalf of the Council, welcome and thank the Honorable Minister for sparing time to be with us. We thank you for the great work you've been doing for our country, and we will encourage you to continue to do so. And hopefully today, you will be able to hear from the other side of the coin some of the expectations of Nigerians. Thank you also, Cyril Azobu. I know you've been quite involved with the Nigerian mining sector, and it will be our pleasure to share with you today your experience in the mining sector. Before I go on, let me quickly recognize the presence of some of our council members. I welcome you, BC Adeyemi, Deputy President, Prince Abimbola Olashore, Vice President of the Chamber, Mr. Wamai again, Vice President, Wale Oshi, our Treasurer, and Ray Atley, Council Member. I will recognize other Council members as they come and join the meeting. We know today that Nigeria has over 44 different types of solid minerals, which have been discovered in over 450 locations nationwide. And Nigeria is actually considered to be rich in solid mineral resources. But it seems like we have only focused over the years on oil. And of course, as a nation, we know the consequences that have come out of this action. It is clear today that given the dwindling revenue from oil, and indeed the need for the federal government to have a lot of financial resources to develop infrastructure, to develop power, to develop social infrastructure, there is need for us to find other ways of generating income. And one clear way will be through solid minerals. As they say, figures don't lie. If you look at the information about mining and contribution of mining to GDPs of other countries, the point will be clearly made. Whereas in Nigeria, as at 2018, mining sector contributed only 0.5% of our GDP. In China in 2015-2016, about 5% of the GDP growth came from mining sector. In Australia, in 2017, 6% of the GDP was accounted for by the mining sector. Now, it's not just about China and Australia. Even when you come back home to Africa, Very close to us, down there, South Africa. South Africa, the mining sector contributed 351 billion rands, which represented 18% of their GDP in 2018. Even very close to us in West Africa here, Ghana, for 2017, 7% of Ghana's GDP was contributed by the mining sector. And indeed, 37% of total exports from Ghana, amounting to 2.1 billion cedis, again, came from this sector. The question is that, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do? And I hope that the Honorable Minister will be kind enough to help us address this issue today. Nigeria needs to know what to do. Where we are 0.5%, and Ghana next door is 7% contributor to the GDP, the gap is quite wide. The gap is quite wide. And I dare say that most of the things that we have in Nigeria, resources we'll have in Ghana, we'll probably have them in Nigeria. Now, we know there are challenges, critical challenges. Some of them have been identified from time to time. There's a low appetite for domestic and foreign exchange investment in the sector. Of course, there's huge infrastructure deficit. Sometimes, to access the mining sites, you need to have road access, but we don't have that. We need to have rail access to also move products to the ports and other communities where they will be required. There are huge security problems in those communities. And of course, there is the inadequacy of data, geosciences data, and mineral production information. And there's an issue of illegal mining, and so on and so forth. I believe that if we are able to address some of these critical challenges, we would have been able to answer that first question. Why do we have such a low contribution to our GDP? Indeed, at this time, Nigeria needs to explore this sector. We need to have a diversified way of earning foreign exchange. And indeed, mining is a very, very good source of earning foreign exchange. We've seen that in so many other countries. It would also help us to also improve employment. Employment is a huge problem in Nigeria. So if that sector enjoys a boom, it will create a lot of jobs for people. Naira income to people will be high. Taxation income to the federal government will increase, and so on and so forth. So, Honorable Minister, knowing your background, we know that you will do very well. Perhaps you would like to share with us some of the plans that you have as a minister during this administration to help address these questions. Also, my brother Cyril Azobu, it would be nice to hear your perspectives on how we can improve this sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for attending. As at the last count, we have about 104 people on this call, and I'm sure that before we end, we'll be hitting a much larger figure. We know we had about 168 registered, but I think we will end up having something quite close to that in terms of attendance. Thank you very much. I would now invite the Honorable Minister for his address, after which the moderator, Cyril Azobu, will take charge and take us through the various questions and comments that we will have. I encourage all of you who have taken time to attend to please take the opportunity of having the Honorable Minister of Mines here today and ask all the questions, and I let him give us the opportunity to also receive the clarification. Honorable Minister, Architect Olamilekan Adegbite, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Brother. I'd like to say good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen that are on the platform. I wish to start by commending the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce for your continuous effort in promoting trade and investment between Nigeria and the UK. And of course, I would like to thank you for having me as a speaker on this webinar. This webinar with the theme Unlocking Nigeria's Economic Potential is apt but quite broad. Nigeria is endowed with boundless opportunities, and with the current macroeconomic environment and shift away from Nigeria's traditional revenue sources, the role of the mining sector is more important than ever. The double-ended shock of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent sharp decline in oil prices has led to a revenue shortfall for the country. Hence, this brought mining to the fore. The President Muhammadu Buhari administration, since 2015, had been making efforts to diversify the economy away from oil through the development of the mining and agricultural sectors. These efforts now needs to be fast-tracked, and we are doing that. Mining offers robust economic potential to diversify the economy, create jobs, and increase government revenue, which is the core mandate of the ministry. Nigeria today is endowed with 44 different mineral types, and we're still going on. 44 discovered so far, and these occur in over 500 locations across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. 7 of these minerals have been designated as strategic to unlock the potential in the sector, the enormous potential in the sector. These are coal, iron ore, bitumen, gold, limestone, lead, zinc, and barite. These 7 have been so selected because of their immediate impact on the economy of Nigeria. If you look at iron ore to make steel, Nigerians spend so much, about $3 billion every year importing steel, while we have iron ore and all the necessary materials to produce steel. We are constantly making new roads, and oftentimes we come across variation in cost of road construction. This often is due to asphalt costs, which the primary component is bitumen. Nigeria has proven reserves of bitumen, which needs to be developed. Gold, of course, because it's precious metal and its value, could also enhance the revenue earning capacity of government. Limestone, lead, zinc, and barite. These are industrial minerals. Of course, limestone is playing a significant role in the cement industry. That's already doing very well. Barite is used in the oil industry, in the drilling mud. All these are imported, and hence these 7 minerals were selected as strategic to be the forerunners towards our industrialization and to earn more money. Alongside the 7 strategic minerals, the ministry is also looking into key minerals to fuel the future. These include metals such as titanium, tungsten, lithium, and cobalt. Nigeria has a lot of potentials for this. These have been found in exploration projects. We need to exploit further to determine the deposit. These minerals have various applications in futuristic industries such as aerospace, telecoms, and electric vehicle manufacturing. These are minerals of the future. The Nigerian mining industry roadmap, this was formulated in 2016, highlights the clear policy direction on how to develop the sector. This policy we continue to improve upon to unlock the potential in the sector. The structural reforms we are embarked upon in the industry are geared towards supporting the emergence of a vibrant private sector and to stimulate resource-based industrialization. It is predicated on the principle that government serves as a regulator, providing an enabling environment for business to thrive. I will quickly highlight some of our reform achievements, which have helped to de-risk the sector, thus making it investor-friendly. We have just completed the automation of the mining cadastral system to meet international standards for online mineral title and license applications. This essentially eliminates administrative bureaucracy while improving the ease of doing business in Nigerian mining sector. The mining cadastral system is the licensing administration in Nigeria. What this does for us essentially is allow investors from wherever they are, whether within Nigeria or outside Nigeria, to access the licensing regime in Nigeria. You can make fresh applications for licenses from wherever you are. You can also verify licenses of would-be partners on this platform. This, of course, helps investors to come to Nigeria and also enhance transparency. In partnership with the British Geological Survey, we are establishing a Nigerian Geodata Center at the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency. This is to ease online access to geological maps and data sets for use in academia, investment decisions, and general research purposes. Investors can now access data. Some come free, some come at different layers. You have to pay a token. You can access the Geodata Center online to seek information about particular minerals, where they occur, where exploration has been to, the kind of reserves that are there. So this is also enhancing transparency and ease of doing business in the mining sector. Finally, in this, we have operationalized an artisanal and small-scale mining remote sensing monitoring system. Presently in Nigeria, the sector is dominated by artisanal miners. These are Nigerians who are into subsistent mining to earn their daily living. Rather than condemn those people, government is organizing them into groups. The remote sensing monitoring system is essentially to identify where they are operating so that we go out there, we register them and organize them into cooperatives. Once they are organized, they can now access government resources that have been prepared for them. I think I will come to some of these incentives that are meant for the artisanal miners as I go on. Also, the ministry established a Department of Investment, Promotion, and Mineral Trade. This essentially is to carry the news abroad. We do trade promotions all over the world. We go to Indaba in South Africa, the PDAC in Canada, African Down Under in Australia, essentially to propagate the mining sector in Nigeria, to let investors be aware of the progress that have been made, either though Nigeria is known essentially as an oil and gas country. And in the past, whenever we mention Nigeria for mining, people will readily dismiss that and say Nigeria is an oil and gas country. But with the incentives and of course, the steps taken by government so far, we are getting good responses. Some of the incentives that we are giving to the investors to attract them into Nigeria on the roadshow. Number one is customs and import duties waiver for plants, machinery, and equipment imported for mining. This is strictly for mining. Any equipment imported for mining will attract custom and import duty waiver. Once you apply to the office of the minister, who are certain those equipments are meant for what it's meant for, and we will send this to the Minister of Finance, approving it and send it to the Minister of Finance, who will grant the import and duty, custom and import duty waiver. There is tax holiday of between 3 to 5 years as applicable. In the first instance, you can have a 3-year tax holiday, and if you qualify, this can be extended to 5 years. There's free transferability of capital and permission to retain and use earned foreign exchange. Capital allowances of up to 95% in qualifying capital expenditure. And finally, 100% ownership is allowed. This is very important to our foreign investors who want to come into Nigeria. Nigerian government as of today allows 100% ownership of mineral properties. At this juncture, I equally wish to point out some ongoing initiatives we have designed to support the sector. One of these is the optimization of our mineral value chain. The ultimate objective of this is to minimize and ultimately to stop the export of raw materials, creating value along the chain that will increase industrial and manufacturing activities, create employment, and foster skills development. Essentially, what we have in the country now, people mine iron ore, lead and zinc, tin, and these are exported as raw ore, or in some cases, dollars, without beneficiation locally. This in turn attracts very poor revenue, even to the miners themselves, and consequently, the royalty that government can realize from this. In our downstream policy, we're encouraging domestic beneficiation, such that any material that is mined is encouraged to have some value addition or beneficiation in Nigeria before exportation. And also not just for export, but to also target our industries in Nigeria who will use these materials. Because without the beneficiations, we send these raw materials out and our industries have to now import them in as finished products. If you're able to do the beneficiation, the industries can key in and of course do import substitution. This of course is at a high stage of completion. Presently, our priority is anchored on the gold sector, especially because of the COVID-19 and the consequent loss of value of currencies all over the world. Everybody is finding a safe haven in gold. Hence, the price of gold is going up constantly. We are creating a gold ecosystem to minimize the high rate of illegal gold mining and smuggling from Nigeria, thus increasing government's revenue from the resource, create jobs, and improve environmental and social stewardship. One of these is the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Initiative, PAGMI. This is essentially, this initiative was set up where the Central Bank of Nigeria will keep some of its foreign reserves in gold. So Nigeria will produce gold locally and the CBN will be the off-taker. This will enhance CBN's foreign reserve because they will purchase the gold in Naira and the gold, of course, is tradable in foreign currencies. Currently, we have a pilot project in Kaduna, Kebbi, Osun, Niger, and Zamfara states. What government is essentially doing here is encouraging the artisanal and small-scale miners who are into gold mining in these areas. We are creating buying centers, official licensed buying centers that will offtake the gold from these sources. From here, we will take to refineries who will refine them into bullion. And of course, it's the bullion that the CBN will offtake. Towards that, government has licensed two companies, Ken Smith, which is based in Ogun State, and Dukia Gold Limited, based in the FCT here. We have given them license to refine gold locally, and both of them are in the process of building their refineries. Once these refineries are completed, all the goods that aggregated through this initiative and other sources will be refined locally and will be offered to CBN to take or even sold outside the shores of the country. Sometime last week, I was part of the epoch-making event where one of our refineries launched their buying centers there's the Dukia Heritage Bank Buying Center. This platform was launched sometime last week by the Vice President. Also, we are trying to stimulate mineral processing hubs or cluster across the country. What we realize is that the processing itself is a very expensive process. So government is intervening by creating clusters and hubs around the miners. What government does essentially in this place would do is to provide power infrastructure, road and rail infrastructure as well, and encourage investors to come in. Government will not really be involved in the business. Government will provide the enablers, power infrastructure, and we're already doing gas pipelines into all these places. The rail line, of course, is being enhanced. We have rehabilitated the Ajakuta, Warri. We have rehabilitated that rail line. It's been extended to Warri Port and will be further extended to Abuja to join the Lagos-Kano line. This essentially is to provide the infrastructure required to encourage investors to come in, to provide processing and refining equipment to support network of miners and processors in these areas. In the longer term, the upgrade and completion of Ajakuta Steel Plant, which we have started on, will enhance jobs and revenue generation. The project is based on a bilateral agreement between Nigeria and Russia, with funding coming from Afrexim Bank and the Russian Export Center. Once Ajakuta become operational, it will wake up some of the companies that either though they have been comatose. The Osogbo Steel Rolling Mills, the Jos Steel Rolling Mills, Castina Rolling Mills. These rolling mills are supposed to be the off-takers of Ajakuta, and they've been comatose since Ajakuta has not taken off. With the completion of Ajakuta, this will enhance that downstream flow. The machine tool industry in Osogbo will also be able to perform optimally. While the upstream, the supply itself into Ajakuta will also create jobs for Nigerians. There are other ongoing initiatives to stimulate growth for the industry. And some of these are, we're working with several stakeholders to design mining-specific credit enhancement instruments so that miners will be able to access long-term finance at concessionary rates through these instruments. Right now, it's only government that is providing funding for the miners. And we found that this is inadequate. We're now trying to encourage private investors, especially local investors within Nigeria and outside, to put funds into mining. And we are showing that this is profitable for investors. These funds will be aggregated, and of course, made available to miners at low interest rates. Currently, government has a 5 billion naira fund, which is quite small, at the Bank of Industry, and miners can access these funds at 5% interest rates and over a long period. Another incentive is we are generating integrated geoscience information that will help in de-risking the mining sector. This is being done through what we call NIMEP, National Integrated Mining Exploration Projects. This project engages competent persons to explore certain minerals in Nigeria. And of course, the data so generated is being made available to investors, both locally and internationally, to attract them to come into the mining sector. Some of the targeted minerals in this group include gold, the platinum group metals, nickel, chromium, lead, zinc, barite, iron ore, and copper. Also, we are developing mineral economic corridors to address infrastructure gaps in the mining value chain. Transport networks connecting mines to ports and end users to enhance competitiveness of the Nigerian mining industry. This is being done. I think I mentioned the rail line, which was dedicated for Ajaokuta, coming from Warri to Ajaokuta itself via Itakpe. This line is being extended to the new Warri port that's being constructed now. And of course, also being extended to Abuja. Ditto, there's a gas pipeline that was dedicated for Ajaokuta. This gas pipeline comes from the Delta and comes all the way to Ajaokuta. The gas pipeline is being extended northwards via Abuja to Kaduna to Kano. This essentially is creating the economic corridor, the spine in the middle, where all the mineral activity happening can key into. There's a further private initiative coming from Nexim Bank, which we call C-Link. This also enhancing this development that government is doing. The C-Link is essentially to use the waterways in Nigeria. As we speak, there are 31 states in the country that are linked to the waterways, have access to water, to the rivers. What C-Link is doing is importing flat bottom barges that could move goods up and down the riverways in Nigeria, and also enhancing mineral sector. Finally, we are getting the right support from the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari on his ethos for diversification, job creation, and sustainable revenue generation. With this kind of backing, and I think the president mentioned that, we are looking to get back to, to come up to 5% contribution to GDP by 2025. Somebody will ask, we are currently at about 0.5% and we want to go to 5% in 5 years. A lot of work had been done by my predecessors in office, which of course we are building up. And everything seems to be crystallizing at the right time. We are now poised for exponential growth in the sector, which of course will make it easy for us to achieve that target of 5% GDP contribution by the year 2025. Thank you so much for listening. I'm open to questions, and then we can take this further in any direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister Architect Olamilekan Adegbite. Very robust session there, and giving a very broad overview. I think this is actually broader than what I would call an overview, more or less like run across the entire industry and then giving us the success stories. I have personally, followed the mining sector for at least the last decade, and I've seen the developments evolve over time. We have questions that are coming in, and we would like you to use the Q&A chat box or the chat box to ask your questions. The Honorable Minister is definitely available to help. And interesting, Honorable Minister, that you stopped at the point where the roadmap expects that there will be a 5% contribution to GDP by the year 2025. And considering that we are currently in 0.5, it looks so much like a tall order, because really between now and 2025 is just a few years away. But I'm glad that there are a number of developments and things that are actually making this happen. And it seems so much so that there's a lot that rests on the private sector to make this happen. And I really do appreciate the efforts of the federal government, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, and your contribution so far to the development of the sector. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And maybe I should start, by asking this question really relating to the sector. You did say a lot about the incentives and what the industry and the ministry has put in place to ensure that investment is attracted to the sector. Now, given where we're at, I think it's a good time to start with the COVID situation. And then what, in your view, really is the impact of this COVID on attracting investments in Nigeria, perhaps in the short term and perhaps also in the long term?
Thank you, Cyril. First thing, COVID has been a blessing in disguise for us. One, like I said, successive governments in Nigeria have been paying lip service to diversification. Everybody realized that we needed to diversify from that monoculture of just crude oil, but it's mostly been lip service. But sometime during this administration, sometime in 2017, President Muhammadu Buhari made a bold move to put money behind that talk. And he funded the ministry extra budgetary through the intervention fund. This ministry got an intervention fund of about 30 billion in 2017. Of course, this money has been judiciously spent to enhance the sector. And that's why I'm confident to make that talk that, oh, by 2025, we should be able to attain that 5% GDP contribution. But coming to your question, the COVID. So now everybody's coming to the realization we should have done this earlier, because with COVID, it's affected the pricing of oil in the international market, not just the pricing, even because industrial production is at its all-time low, people are not even buying the oil at all. For a government that has relied on revenue that comes from oil, this it's a reality show. Now, government is focusing more and fast-tracking the plans that we had before by trying to push more money into the mining sector and, of course, agri sector to make sure that it lessens the impact of COVID-19 on the economy of Nigeria. A lot of industries are retrenching and all that, but with mining, with the proper funding and investment, mining is an employment El Dorado. From the downstream policy to Ajaokuta itself, and so many initiatives that we have in place now, employment generation is assured. So what COVID has done for us in this sector essentially is has refocused now more than the lip service of the past. Now that we needed to spend money on mining sector and of course agri to get us to where we're going to diversify the economy. So it's been a plus on that. Apart from the fact that because of the COVID, a lot of people cannot pursue their activities, but it's also a blessing as well, because now, for instance, people that are mining lead, price of lead zinc had gone down in the international market, but it's allowing the miners to stockpile. Also for tin, people that are mining tin and export ingots, price had gone down. They're not hearing me. What is it? Can you hear me, Cyril?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, the price of tin had gone down international market. So essentially, this period is for stockpiling because the price would definitely go up. But for gold, price of gold seems to be skyrocketing. It's gone from the last 6 months from about 1,500 to about 1,700 plus per ounce. That's the bullion international. This, of course, has some downsides to it. It has increased the smuggling activity of these gold people out of Nigeria because gold is going online. But all in all, it's been a mixed bag for us, the positives and of course the negative. And we are, of course, responding appropriately to make sure that Nigeria gets ahead of this COVID. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Interesting you mentioned Ajaokuta, and someone is asking here what exactly in terms of figure in detail, greater detail, where are we on Ajaokuta? Somebody wants to know.
Well, Ajaokuta this time, government has tried different options. We did concession to the Americans, we did concession to the Indians, and it failed. What we're doing now is we've gone back to the original builders of Ajaokuta. Ajaokuta was built by the Soviet Union then, which was essentially people from Russia and Ukraine under the Soviet Union built Ajaokuta to where it is today, about 98% completion. We've gone back to the Russian government. So on a government-to-government basis, to restart Ajaokuta without burdening the government of the cost. What we are doing essentially is a business case where the bank, Afrexim Bank, and the Russian Export Center are providing funding. The Russian government are nominating the contractor who will also manage Ajaokuta for a period of time. It's a build, operate, transfer system. So that the money we've had pledged fund about 1.45 billion, 1 billion from Afrexim Bank, $450 million from from the Russian Export Center. This money will be spent to resuscitate Ajaokuta, and Ajaokuta itself will pay back this money. Hence, the business case has been done, which has been approved by the bank, by Afrexim Bank and the Russian Export Center. So they are committed to giving us this fund. If not for COVID, the next stage in the process, we started October last year. I went to Russia with Mr. President for the Russian African Summit, where this was crystallized. But by now, we should have had boots on ground trying to do the audits, the technical audit. Unfortunately, because of COVID, they were supposed to come in end of February to start the technical audit, which will lead to a bill. That bill, the BEME, will give us the exact cost of rehabilitation so that it becomes to produce. But once COVID is over, this lockdown is over, these people will come in to start the audit. So the audit itself is supposed to take about 12 weeks, about 12 months. By now, we should have had the result of the audit, March, April, May. That was what it was meant for. But of course, there's a little setback with COVID. We hope the technical people will come in maybe by July if this lockdown is lifted and they can start the technical audit. The technical audit will lead us to the bill, and then we can negotiate, firm up the price, and of course, work can start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think there's a follow-up question here in terms of the bilateral agreement that we have with Russia. Does it really give Nigeria opportunity to optimize, for off-takers, the entire value chain locally? And the second question around that is really around power. You need a lot of power for steel. And what exactly is the state of power, and what is the coordination efforts to ensure that there's sufficient power to run that project?
Well, in fact, one of the major highlight of the business case that was made to the banks for them to accept to fund this is the fact that the local consumption in Nigeria itself exceeds the capacity of Ajaokuta. Right now, in phase 1 of Ajaokuta, you're producing about 1.3 metric tons. Nigeria consumes about 3 metric tons annually. So even when Ajaokuta is completed in the first phase, we cannot satisfy local demand. There are 3 phases planned for Ajaokuta. By the time you get to the 3rd phase, the second is 2.6, it just doubles. 2.6, then it goes to 5.2. By the time we get to the 3rd phase, then we'll be able to satisfy local demand, and then we can also export to the West African region and all that. So in itself, the local industry will benefit from Ajaokuta itself. That is standard. 2, when you speak of power, Ajaokuta is one place that's well planned. It has its own independent power generation, and gas pipes is already in Ajaokuta to the place. So once the operation starts, we have gas. Nigeria still have plenty of gas reserves. Power generation should not be a problem for Ajaokuta. Yes, still production is power consuming, but we have adequate preparation for that in Ajaokuta already.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. One of the strategic mirrors is coal, and someone is asking a question: where exactly are we? Are there new coal projects? Are there success stories? What is this looking like?
Yeah, coal is one of our strategic mirrors, and coal had been responsible for growth in Nigeria in the past, and of course, we're coming back to that. There's this move away in the world. People are moving away from, all this fuel to move into renewable energy. But Nigeria has the kind of reserve that we cannot just ignore. So there's a lot of coal to power projects in Nigeria as we speak. There's a particular project that's coming out of Edo State that will supply, it's a scalable project. It's starting from 2 megawatts to go to 4 to go to 6. This is Ramos. I don't want to promote any individual company, but that's a success story. It's got its license, and it's gone so far with coal exploitation there, and it's got its equipment in there. Very soon, I think maybe sometime next year, it should be generating power to put into the grid. So coal itself is going on. We may not be able to resuscitate Nigerian Coal Commission like it has, because that comes a lot of baggages. But we are trying to deal with coal through some other vehicle, not necessarily the Nigerian Coal Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. There's a question really around the NIPMEP projects, and someone wants to know where we're at with the projects. I know that the design phase has been completed, phase 1 to 3. I'm not sure what the next phase is, but perhaps a bit more detail around the NIPMEP project would be very useful to this person asking this question.
Well, the NIMEP project is almost completed. They were supposed to bring, the final report was supposed to come in by March because they finished all the field studies and now they're doing drilling, which of course to determine to some extent the deposit. The drilling has been slowed down because of the COVID and all that. But I'm looking at, by the end of the third quarter, we should have the final report of NIMEP. Even what we have already, the data generated from the exploration project is what we've been taking out on our roadshow, and it's already attracting good interest from foreign investors.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I mean, it goes without saying that the work done around the artisanal mining sector is quite useful to helping, you know, with some of the issues that people are having. And someone really is asking around the project around security, the issue around security. I know also that there is the technology around remote sensing and issues around things around organizing the artisanal sector to, you know, formalize them. It'll be good to just share some insights around what is going on in formalizing the artisanal sector, mainstreaming them, and also helping to curb the illegal mining that we currently have within the mining landscape.
Well, essentially, the illegal miners ride on the back of our artisanal miners. I've told you, artisanal miners mostly these subsistence people who are just there to get a daily bread. What happens is that the illegal miners ride on their back, and this essentially leads to insecurity because the kind of money generated, revenue generated from that is not accounted for by government at all, and this could be channeled into other things. There's been instances where these illegal miners have caused some insurgency so they go access. But what government is doing, one of this is to win the artisanal miners off the illegal miners. Government is providing a better platform for them where they will get the full value of whatever they realize. And of course, they will also benefit from government funding. We are giving them funds at very low prices, at very low interest rates. So they will benefit from this. They will sell to government, make better money. And at the same time, we're also teaching them safer methods. And of course, giving them equipment to mine. This is just one way of trying to win them off the artisanal miners. As for security itself, the Office of the National Security Advisor is working with us. We've created what we call the mine police. And whenever we have a report where these people are operating, we move in and of course try to dislodge them. There have been some successes in the recent past where illegal miners have been arrested. We're in the process of prosecuting them just to create examples and of course serve as deterrents for other people. So this is under the belt.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And someone is asking, how can Nigerians in diaspora support? I mean, I think that part of the investment campaign or investor investment campaign would be to the Nigerians in diaspora. And what efforts really are towards this, and how can they support?
Well, there's so many ways. One, like I said, we are creating a fund to support miners. This fund is to come from the private sector as well. Nigerians can invest in this fund, which will of course be very profitable to support mining. Also, Nigerians can also invest in the downstream sector. This is opening up opportunities for people. We have a lot of these materials that are required by the industry. For instance, from limestone, we could generate the lime that is used in water production. Right now, all that is imported. Somebody can come into that field, and of course, the limestone is already there. You extract the material that is required, and there's a big market for you. In the paint industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, what is happening now is that Nigeria will export the raw ore, and of course, we import the finished product. So we're trying to discourage that, creating a downstream policy where investors can key into any particular mineral, process it, and there's ready market both locally and internationally. So Nigerians in the diaspora can come in any of this, whether to participate directly in the downstream sector or to, of course, participate in that kind of fund. There are so many other ways.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I mean, talking about Nigerians investing in the mining sector in Nigeria, someone is asking questions around foreign investment, having 100% foreign ownership. And someone is asking, would that give Nigerian investors the muscle to participate, taking into consideration the limited access to finance compared to easier access by foreign companies?
Well, what this is essentially doing is because Nigeria is at its infancy when it comes to this field. Mining used to be responsible for our economy in the 50s, 40s, before the advent of oil and gas. But we've shifted attention away, and we're just trying to come back into it. This is to attract investors. This is to attract investors to come into Nigeria. For instance, in Tanzania, compulsorily government acquires 20% of your investment in mining in that country. And of course, this is, investors don't like that, let's just say. But what we do here is that we allow investors to own their own mineral property, 100%, at least as they're coming in. So these are some of the incentives to make sure foreign investors feel comfortable coming to Nigeria. And of course, they can also export their capital afterwards. This doesn't stop Nigerians from participating, whether coming together to do mining themselves. Like I said, the Nigerians can participate in mining. They can participate in the downstream process. They can also participate in the fund that's been created for mining. This does not disturb one or the other.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I mean, really, at the back of that, one is also wondering, well, ACTA is there, the impact of ACTA and Nigeria's competitiveness against other African countries, really. And I'd expect that local players in the industry are worried about their markets. And I quite so much agree with you. You need to open up the industry to as many who would be willing to invest in it. So let's look at ACTA and where Nigeria really stands amongst colleagues within other African nations and our competitiveness to be able to stand tall, at least within the short to medium term.
Well, in fact, before we even go outside, you see, Nigeria has enormous capacity to absorb most of these minerals. Like I said, most of our industries now import this finished product. So without even looking outside the shores of the country, your market is assured. That's the beauty of Nigeria. We have a big market here. The paint industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and of course, we've talked about the cement industry, water processing, almost everything. The tile industry. In fact, that's one of the success stories we should be talking about. Somewhere in Ogun State now around Shagamu. The company there is one of the biggest tile manufacturers in the world. They came into Nigeria essentially because the raw material is here. And now they are making tiles, exporting from Nigeria. Anytime I see those packages, I'm proud because it says made in Ogun State, Nigeria. And you find it in the European markets. You find it in the Middle East. So they're exporting from here outside. It's some of the success story. Of course, that's a foreign investment with some Nigerians, but they're there in Shagamu. The raw materials are here. The market is so big, even before you go into the rest of Africa, where you're talking of after. Nigeria, if you harness this properly, the after actually benefit Nigeria more than any other country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And it goes without saying that you can't talk about the mining industry without talking about the environment and the host communities. And so some questions around the protocol with host communities and really how are we promoting safety practices within the industry generally to ensure that we put the agenda about environment in full consideration.
Well, the beauty of this is that we have something to learn from. We learned from the oil and gas mistakes. Now in mining, there's something that's so essential. You can't do mining in Nigeria without what we call community agreement. This essentially, apart from the fact that you have to submit an environment impact analysis a big report that tells you about what you're going to, how you're going to restore the environment. You have to submit this to us, which of course will be approved by the Ministry of Environment. The Federal Ministry of Environment approves that. That is one submission. But even beyond that, that is a promise to restore the environment after you complete. The community must be carried along. There's something we call community agreement. Without this, you can't even begin to do any work in Nigeria. You cannot do anything. So what the ministry does essentially is to act as an umpire, an arbiter sort in the middle. We moderate the expectations of our people. At the same time, we ensure that the investor will not cheat our people. So the expectations are graduated. At the initial stage, they do some tokenism and all that. But as they begin to mine and make profit, the expectations become higher. That's when they say, oh, build a school for us, give us power. Initially, maybe all you need to do is just to grade their roads, you know? So there's something essentially, every community that's affected by your mining operation must come to agreement with you. If there are 10 communities within your area, you must sign individually with each community. Without this, we cannot grant you access. You cannot start the mining operation. So we've learned that from Nigeria, and of course, the communities are happy because you also provide employment for them. They build classrooms, you bring power, you give them water reticulation, and of course, so there's so many benefits that comes from this. So the mining sector is getting this right ab initio.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. There's a question here around mining policies and laws, and someone's asking if there is any plans to review the Act, what I'm aware of though, and any other policies that are in view. And perhaps someone also is asking the role of professionals, maybe the lawyers as well are interested in some of these developments within the sector.
Well, the law that we're using currently is 2007.
Yeah.
And you tell me, yes, 2007, the Mining Act, there was something done in 2011. But even now, that is a bit old. As we speak, we've already given out, we've already sent out tenders for people to review the law for us so that we can take it to the parliament. So the laws are constantly being reviewed. The laws are a bit old. There are new realities that are not, were not envisaged in the laws of 2007, the Mining Act of 2007. So we are already in that process where we are reviewing the laws, and of course, our lawyers and our friends they are involved in this, helping us to review the law. And once that is done, we'll package it and of course take it to the National Assembly, where they will do the public engagement to have contribution to that before it becomes an act of parliament. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Minister. One critical thing you'll find in terms of the challenges that have fallen the sector is financing. And it's good that you mentioned the 5 billion that is being devoted to, or that's been designated for artisanal miners or small-scale miners generally. Someone wants to ask, how far with this? Are they able to access them? The criteria, and what exactly is it? I mean, is the situation with this? And also around the upstream sector, in terms of mineral quality and all that, what is the process of ensuring that we have credibility in terms of the quality of minerals that are produced out of Nigeria?
Oh, thank you, Cyril. Well, for the funding, we put the 5 billion in Bank of Industry because, like I said, the ministry does not have the requisite skill to manage that fund. So we put it in the Bank of Industry. The success story so far is that about 5-6 people have accessed that money. About another 10 people have been approved, waiting for them to satisfy some conditions before they'll get the money. The conditions are, I mean, the basic rule is that from a minimum of about 10 million, the maximum anybody can access there is 100 million per individual. And like I said, about 7 people have accessed that, and of course, they're enjoying that presently. What we do not want is the fact that people assume that this is their own share of the national cake. They take the money and go away. That's why some of the conditions have been stringent, and not many people have been able to access that fund since it's been with BOI. In fact, when I came into office, the 5 billion had become like 7 point something. Of course, acquiring interest along the way. But while that's not the purpose, it's not meant to acquire, it's meant to support the miners. Also, we are making the miners to realize that it's not manna from heaven. It's money meant to support you you pay back and other people can benefit. So it's part of the process where we are organizing these miners into cooperatives. It's easier for the cooperative to access that fund than for individuals, because then you now have what you call collective support and of course guarantee for such funding. But like I said, about 10 approvals that have been granted that have not been accessed, and another 7 people that are already enjoying the funds as we speak.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. One critical area when it comes to funding of mining projects is the exploration phase, and I'm glad that the NIMET project really attempts to help to de-risk the sector. The funding available so far, even is for small-scale miners, artisanal miners, but there are juniors as well who are involved in, investing in exploration projects. There are questions around, is there any form of assistance in this way to those who are slightly, gone further into exploration? I know it's difficult to find banks. Of course, banks would hardly and not even fund exploration projects. Perhaps the NIMET project would help. And maybe back to the other questions that I asked around where we're at in the NIMET project, what exactly does this cover? How do junior miners take advantage of whatever developments that are happening within the NIMET project and generally around exploration?
By its nature, you say exploration is a risky venture.
Absolutely.
You might go somewhere and find out that whatever is available there is not commercially viable, and you will have expended so much to ascertain that fact. That is why you hardly find any bank that wants to fund exploration projects, because you could spend $100 million and then you find out at the end of the day what's there is not worth it. So, and that's why government provided that money for us, and that's what NIMEP is doing to de-risk the sector for people who will come and take it further. What NIMEP is doing essentially within those minerals that they're working on is to make sure that we get all the geoscience data and we do drilling. The drilling will further tell you that, oh, this mineral has potential, which somebody can take from there. By that, you have de-risked it. The one that's not worth going further, NIMEP would define that. So government has taken that risk upon itself, providing the funding for such exploration. For individuals to do that, it's quite risky, and I don't think we have anybody doing that in Nigeria now that is going on a green field to do exploration, because it's highly risky.
Absolutely, absolutely, Honorable Minister. I mean, there are questions really around mineral title administration and obtaining licenses, and I'm so very thrilled with the work that is going on in terms of automation of the cadastre. And there's a few questions really around transparency here, and perhaps what comes to mind, maybe not related to that, particularly when it comes to disputes around licenses. There's a case on ground currently, even in court. My question really is around mineral title administration, and the concerns people have around the security of license, which is a key requirement for EODB, ease of doing business. And of course, we have made a lot of efforts in this side. I guess a bit of reassurance to investors and potential investors will help, in this sense.
Well, like I said, work has just been completed on the automation of the cadastre system. And from the reserve of your office, your bedroom, wherever you are in the world, you can access the platform to ascertain the genuineness or otherwise of any title that's been presented to you. In the past, Nigerians will take titles abroad to hawk them, and investors were not sure of the genuineness of those titles. And the only way they could find out was to travel down to Nigeria, and then sometimes they're disappointed. Now, that is why, to create transparency, we've taken it onto that platform. It's called EMC Squared. This platform will avail anybody that's interested to check. You can apply for a fresh title on that platform without coming to Nigeria, or even we are in Nigeria without coming to Abuja, the office. You can apply for a fresh title. And if you are going to partnership with somebody who already has a title, you can also check that title, the genuineness of the title. Let me just say this without going to the, say the sub judice. The thing about title in the past had been that, you see, when some people get title and they hold on to it without doing anything on it. There are rules guiding when you have titles. Apart from the fact that you pay some annual fee on the title, you must also submit documents, submit reports on your activity on the site. In some cases, people have not done this and they assume they still have the title. There's a process for revocation of titles that are not performing. And this is done openly. You write to those such people. But in some cases where people did not leave a proper address in the beginning, or they moved from that address without informing the cadastral office. So when you write to such address that, look, you are in the process of revoking this title, these are the remedies you need to take. Because before we can revoke any title, you must warn the title owner and, of course, ask him to remedy that anomaly. And they have the opportunity, you give them time. If they remedy it, of course, you don't have to take that title. So titles are not just taken arbitrarily or at once. You must inform the title holder of where they have gone wrong, and of course, give them opportunity to remedy that situation before titles are. So our title administration system now is very open, it's transparent. Like I said, it's an online platform and everybody can access it. So we're good on that. And the NGSA, the Geodata Center, is also coming online very soon. So both of them, whether you want to access data through the Geodata Center, or you want to look at the licensing regime, they are both online. They are both going to be online eventually, very soon, and everything is transparent. So all this issue of I own the title, you own that, you can trace it. Even without going anywhere, you yourself can trace it online and be able to decide who is right or who is wrong.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. There are several questions here. I think I'm even lost in, like, drowned in the sea of questions, and I'm not even sure how much more time we have. But I would not let this pass without asking females in the mining industry. So gender, these are gender matters, right? And so is there any consideration right now within your own administration, Honorable Minister?
Yes, there is. There's this group, it's called Women in Mining. And I think the current president, Mrs. Adeyemi, often comes in here, and of course, we exchange views and all that. And of course, she gives advice on how we can enhance women in mining. We're doing this through different incentives. One, once women get involved in mining, there's a tendency to bring children into mining as well, which of course, from studies we found, is women essentially who bring children into mining. And to curb that, we are helping the women, we're supporting them with equipment. This, of course, is targeted at women. These are minor implements, like by the time you give the woman a wheelbarrow, give them shovels, they don't need the kid again to carry the pan, the head pan for them. So, and of course, we're also building schools in such areas. We've had pilot projects which are very successful. We built classrooms so that the kids could go back to school, and we give the women equipment to enhance their productivity. And the fact that it has worked. The kids, the enrollments, of course, went up. And of course, the women, of course, their productivity went up. It was a pilot project, but it's something that we're expanding and working on. We're encouraging women, and that's at the lower level. But of course, we're also encouraging women to invest in the mining sector, whether through the beneficiation, that's the downstream process, or in mining itself.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My time is up. Unfortunately, I can't take any more questions. And I don't say if there's anything I want to add to all you have said, because really within a very short time, some people have actually done more than one-on-one mining 101. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You've been very, 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 very helpful in helping people to understand the mining sector within this very short time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time and for this question and answer period. I may not have so much time to go over this for now, but I would like to hand over to the President and Chairman of the Council, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kayode Falowo, to take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I can clearly see, and I'm sure everybody who has been part of this webinar can attest to the fact that you are clearly invested in this mining and steel development project. Even from your gesticulation, you can see a man that is enjoying what he's doing. And I think one of the best things that can happen to someone is to really, really be passionate about his job. You've done very well today. The 2025 dream would be welcome. If we can achieve 5%, that will be a way of ensuring that Nigeria gets to really become a mining destination. Thank you very much for what you have also said about Ajaokuta. Cyril and I have been involved with it for some time, and we know that is one project that has experienced all sorts of failures. I guarantee you that if you're able to deliver Ajaokuta, and the program you have chosen, along with Mr. President, I think is a very good one. We are the Federal Republic, we don't need to actually spend more money on that project. If you can deliver Ajaokuta, you and I know that that would significantly impact the economy and indeed would open up another economic corridor in the north central part of Nigeria. That is one that I think would be a great one for you. Also, the cadastral systems, you've talked about that beneficiation, and then the funding arrangement for artisanal miners and other miners, that will also help to achieve that. Today, many questions and interests have been indicated. Unfortunately, we can't take also, we apologize because of the time. Honorable Minister, I think we might need to call you back, maybe after COVID. I think Nigerians would love to hear more from you and to also be able to give you various suggestions and ideas. We will contact you again, and then we would like to have maybe a broader, bigger session sometime after COVID, and where we are able to either have something in Lagos or have something in Abuja. As a chamber, we would like also to collaborate with you in this journey. We know that the UK investors have invested a lot in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, but we haven't seen the same in the mining sector. So this will probably be one conversation we should also be having with you on how we can also help attract UK and indeed European businesses into that sector. We've seen a lot of Chinese investors, but maybe we also want to begin to look at a lot of European investors. Thank you, but I will not now end without inviting Prince Abimbola Olasore, our Vice President, who will actually give the formal closing and will also give the vote of thanks. Prince Olasore.
Thank you very much, President. First of all, on behalf of the President and the Council of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank our Honorable Minister, Architect Olamilekan Adegbite, for coming on to our platform to share your thoughts and also your experiences in what government is doing in unlocking Nigeria's economic potential through the mines and steel development. We really must thank you for your initial presentation, which set the tone. Obviously, you shared the factor endowment in mining sector in Nigeria. Also, the incentives that are available to investors. Also, dealing with the issue of the artisan miners. I think much more importantly, you spoke about de-risking the sector and the infrastructure development in the country to enhance the development of the sector. So really must thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on that. And in particular, I must also thank you for your robust answers and the education that you've given to a lot more people on this. As the President said, even if you look at the questions, quite a number of questions are still there unanswered. So we sincerely look forward to welcoming you back again, where we can have a much more, maybe a longer session, because given the kind of questions that were asked, it's obvious that we need more time to really do justice to what we have done. So thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Also to express our thanks to Cyril Azobu, who is a partner in charge of advisory and mining leader at PwC, for professionally handling the session. We thank you very much for being with us. Also, we cannot go without thanking all the participants, quite a number of our members who are on, also a number of non-members. Most thank you for making it interactive and asking what I call relevant and very thoughtful questions. Over 45 questions are still hanging on our chat. So really must thank you for being with us and look forward to welcoming you all on our future programs. I cannot end without thanking Mr. Akio Shutoki, the chairman of our programs committee, for another robust program that you've set up for us, and also the secretariat. It's also useful for me at this point to also mention some of our upcoming events that we have.
I think, first of all, we have an export and import trade documentation procedure, which is coming up next week on June 25th. It's also something useful for all those who are the import and export trade. And we also have a program coming up in July, which is optimal performance management, coming up on the 14th and 15th of July. And also it's all about strategic and innovative leadership for business continuity, also coming up in July. These are some of the upcoming programs that we have that is open for our members and also non-members as well. For our non-members, we can quickly invite you to join us and become a member. I'm sure from what you have seen today, it's a Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. It's really the foremost bilateral chamber in this country, and we do believe in offering value to all our members. And you can join us by contacting us. I think the details are on there at our website, concerning Osareme at mbcc.org.ng, and also Bisola Oluwadamilola at mbcc.org.ng. So really, it's really to thank you very much for being part of this. And again, you really can join us to see what else is going on at MBCC. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter, and you can also call us. That is also still there. So it's really on behalf of the President and Council and all members of Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce to thank everybody for being part of this wonderful engagement. I look forward to welcoming you to our future programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prince Olashore. Well, for those who still want to network and chat and send chats, please go ahead and do so. We will send any other comments you have to the Honorable Minister. Thank you, everybody.